Okay.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
it's okay.
Now we go.
So there we go. Okay. So just kind of waiting on other people, and I won't try to talk too loud. I think I may be hearing a little bit of interference. Can you?
Well, I can hear you, but you can probably hear me. But it's no big deal. It's no big deal.
Let me close the door. I think my door is not.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let me put this up.
So I didn't really get to read all of chapter one like I wanted to, but I've kind of skimmed over because I pretty much read a lot of when I read a book, I don't read chapter one and chapter two. What I do is I kind of read all over. I might read chapter one and then I'll find a subject in a book that I like, then I'll just read that piece, and then of course in the end up reading the whole book. But but I was able to kind of go over chapter one a little bit. I really don't want to get too far into it, but anyway, and we did commit to an hour, so let's just get that commitment and do that.
What's going on, peoples?
Hey Jeff, what's going on?
Jeff, how are you?
I'm good, good.
That's what I'm talking about. Look, and happy anniversary, Holloways.
And happy belated anniversary to y'all too.
Yes. I saw it on Facebook and I knew it was around this time. I said, oh, there it is. I said, there we go. So look, happy 23 years of wedding bliss.
Yes.
So, okay. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started, guys, because like I said, we're on recorded line as well. So let me go back, Tom, and kind of hit some high points from last week, and then kind of give other people a chance to join, and then we're gonna keep it moving, because the good thing about it, people can kind of pick up kind of where we are. So last week we were talking a little bit about the introduction about a wealth of knowledge by Dr. Kimbrough, and that was pretty much just talking about we had a really good talk about different things and everything, and it was talking about 9 disciplines that were really important that he felt to bring up. And last week we had a lot of people just talking about different nuggets of things that they took out of the intro. And so I'm just going to kind of talk through each discipline. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to bring it up and just kind of talk through that. So the 9 disciplines that he was talking about in the introduction, the first one, it says, be passionate and focus on unique strengths, develop clear and delineated goals. So he talked about that. On discipline 2, he says, be autonomous and independent, deep need for internal control, highly motivated and self-starter. So he kind of talks through that on that particular discipline. Discipline 3, he says, strong work ethic and bias for action. 4 is creativity and innovation, recognize the powers of ideas. And he kind of talked a little bit about Daymond John in that particular discipline a little bit. Discipline 5, never consider the possibility of failure. And he just said, in the process of chasing your dream, optimism is not a luxury, but a necessity. So that's one that was really good as well. Discipline 6, inquisitive, strong desire to know, quick to absorb and apply new information. And this, he just talked about, I guess, as African Americans, we're just talking about how households spend more than about 7 hours each day of looking at television. And whereas the wealthy read about 2 books per month. So just talked about the discrepancies there. Discipline 7 is strong sales skills. You have to be able to sell yourself. Sell is not a 4-letter word. And he just talks about how nothing occurs until someone sells something, nothing. Hear me loud and clear. That's no way to avoid it. Wealth creation requires effective sales skills. And that is the darn truth for sure. Yeah. Number 8, savings. It says thrifty and frugal in nature. It talks about talking about Usher in this particular discipline, talks about Usher being raised by his mom out of Chattanooga, hailed to Chattanooga, Tennessee, talked about that and how he went to Atlanta, Georgia to pursue his particular dreams, him and his mom, and how when he first started off, he was spending a lot of money and they didn't think he was going to be able to keep that money. And finally, some of his financial advisors kind of taught him a way of being able to think a little bit differently there. So that's a little bit background on that. Discipline number 9, spirituality, which is really pretty much the gospel of wealth. And he just talked about how regardless of what's going on, that in the Black community, first and foremost, that is, the backbone of everything is our faith, and how we have to have faith in order to be able to get through some of the trying times that we have. And this example talked about Kirk Franklin and how, he came about in a time where the type of gospel music he was doing was revolutionary, and that some of the old heads didn't really think it was gospel music, and how he found a way of carving his niche out in that particular realm. But he also had some demons to fight, some of the background that he had in his life and how he overcome that. So that's pretty much it for the 9 disciplines. It was really good last week. We talked through a whole lot of different nuggets, talked about just kind of how having a growth mindset and having a wealth mindset really helps us first start off. And so we decided to start with chapter 1 this week. So this particular week, we're going to be talking about decision. Resolve now that you will not be poor. And that starts on page, I think, 39. 39. And so it talks about kind of the second law of wealth. And he kind of talks about the different things here in reference to the consistence. He also talks about different things in reference to affluent, the profile of the affluent African-American, and how African-Americans, when he started to do some of the audits, he realized that there were so many different people from different backgrounds, but the most commonalities he started to pull out in these particular audits. Yeah. So there, some of the nuggets that I took out here was, he was saying the average Black millionaire is about 52 years old, male, nearly 12%, growing, female born in the Northeast, Midwest, majority raised in home where both parents were present. Average net worth was about $4 million. Married 15 to 20 years. Average income of their parents. And listen to this, guys. This is what's so crazy, is the average income of a millionaire's parents, $10,000 to $20,000 per year.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's 2 incomes. That's
together.
2. Right. Right.
It blew my mind when I read that. I was like, hey, Tasha, how you doing, Natasha?
Hello, everyone. I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. We were just getting started. I was telling everybody we're going to start. Go ahead and get started. And then if anybody new that jumps on, we'll try to get them introduced maybe a little bit longer. I wanted to kind of do a recap of last week a little bit, and I didn't do it justice. I tell you, it was fantastic last week. And I kind of did little tidbits there. But we'll kind of see as everybody comes on and everything, talk through stuff. But yeah, he had a profile that was just really phenomenal. Talked about children 2+. Let's see what else was on here, guys. Credit card debt, average $2,500. Cars 4+, Mercedes or Lexus, General Motors or Ford. Church habits, twice a week at churches with fewer than 2,500 members. So we talked about GPA, male 2.9, female 3.4. So just talked about the different things, the commonalities that he was seeing in the consistency of what he was finding. And he talked, to a lot of different people, but he was just saying overall, this is kind of what he found out. He did also say something about the value of the person's home. He said 200,000 up to 299,000. So not quite 300,000.
Right.
So Wow.
And see, the thing you got to remember there too, Miss Sharon, is that it's cool what he said.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to look at what he didn't say.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get to the cars, they didn't say it had 4-post cars, but you don't see Ferrari in there, you don't see Bentley in there. You see what I mean? You don't see those types of vehicles, and I think, and just to deal with the vehicles, a lot of us believe that they think that we have to floss. So a lot of us feel like we have to show the world that we can do something. We got to get. Now, none of you women in red bars. I'm not saying this. My wife, she loves shoes, but you don't have to have a $4,000 pair of shoes to prove that you can do it. Okay, or guys, we don't have to have Louis Vuitton everything on, but the shirt, the pants, the underwear, the socks. You don't have to do all that stuff. As a matter of fact, Sharon and I, we know a millionaire right here that we're close to. Mm-hmm. If you saw him walking down the street, you would not know that he had $1 million plus sitting in the bank. And he's a little older than 52, but he was pretty much kicking it in his 50s. Now he's retired, and he's been retired for over half of my life. But we know that he's doing very well financially. But he fits in all that category. His house around $300,000. He's got 2 cars that are paid for. He's very well educated, and his family. He definitely come from a family that made $10,000 to $20,000 a year. We know that for sure. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of us need to get away from the old cliche or the old saying that where you gotta do certain things to show that you are rich, or prove to the world that you got something.
Yeah. Well, I like that he said that you can only drive 1 car at a time.
Right.
See?
Right. Which is
so you're
mind blowing.
Yeah. When he said it like that, he was like, some people have you don't have to have 4 and 5 cars because you could only drive them 1 at a time. And I was thinking, okay, I see.
Right. Makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's kind of. And don't get me wrong, of course, when you have a larger family, you may, have a, wife that needs, or a husband needs, or, or a child or whatever. But like you said, the biggest thing is that when I think that's kind of going back to Usher in that particular discipline, they were talking about how it was, buying all these cars, and you get, a lot of these guys have never had that type of money. And so when they get into this type of luxury, they start to think, oh, goodness, I got it made. And they think that the money grows on trees and is fluid. And what happens is that someone with some type of financial stability has to kind of step in because they don't know any better. We're not teaching our children. And I think that's what's key here. And it's not because we don't want them to know better. It's because we don't know better. We didn't know better. Our parents didn't know better. I mean, I think some parents, especially if you had what I call mature parents, and it is a actual part that's called matures, that they grew up in the Depression. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of them, they knew how to save, they knew how to put things up. But then as things started to get better, after World War II and those different things, you had more of affluence. You had baby boomers, and you had people who kind of spent more because that's what society told you to be. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is that people started to see the influence, the associated influence with materials, and not with a mindset. And so it's kind of like a lot of us really weren't taught. Our ancestors weren't taught to think about being wealthy in a mindset. So, like you said, you can't drive 1 car at a time. So why do you need 5?
Right.
And why you need 5 luxuries?
Luxury, and they're just sitting collecting dust.
Yeah. Well, you got to pay insurance. You got to pay it. And so a lot of times, I think we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and we realize that you can't keep up with the Joneses. Sometimes you got to be able to set yourself aside, and he talks about that really, really well, just thinking through this, especially in this chapter 1, he talks about that. So like for instance, one of the nuggets, and I know we talked about this last week, bringing up a couple of nuggets that really stood out for us. So for me, a couple things, and I'll start off with one. It says money is the instrument of exchange for value production and is earned only by the producer. Mm-hmm. And so he's just saying the accumulation of wealth is accomplished only by the consistent applied effort and discipline. Mm-hmm. And so basically what he's saying is that as long as you're working hard, you're doing what you need to do, money's going to flow. The second one, nugget to that I highlighted is when money flows freely and it circulates, it blesses humanity. But when hoarding, squandering, or abusing interrupts the circulation, money becomes a curse. Mm-hmm. In itself, money does not increase the personal merit of its possessor. Mm-hmm. That's
deep.
That is so deep on so many levels, because I'm gonna tell you guys, I don't think I ever thought about money like that.
Yeah, I didn't.
Because I know people used to say when you had close your fist, they close your hand up. It's like, you can't get money out. And people used to say that, but I never really thought about that way. It's like you have to kind of keep it circulating, but like they're saying, you can't squander it either. It doesn't mean it's to spend all of it. It means to save. And I think last time they talked about, what was the quote? He said, if you don't save 10% of your money,
right, then the seed of greatness is not in you.
Mm-hmm. The seed of greatness is not in you. When I heard that, I was like, wow, no one has ever put that to me. I've heard, my grandma, my granddaddy, they would say, you go say 10%, you're supposed to give God 10%, then you're supposed to save 10%. I've heard that, but I have never heard someone associate that when you do not start to put money in your own pocket first, then what is that again? Greatness is not in you.
Yeah, if you can't save 10% of everything you earn, then the seed of greatness is not in you.
Because my dad always say, you get 10% to the church and you give yourself 10%. And then I was like, what do you mean if I give myself? He said, what you need, you need a seed so you can grow other things out of your money that you make money. You give the church 10%, you give yourself 10%. So you have a nest egg so you can make investments on stuff. So that's what we're at with my dad. Because he has apartments and invested in restaurants. Him and the family invested in restaurants. So he was showing us how to do that. So that's a start that some of us started and some of us not, because some of us are, like he said, you're going to fail in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So you got to keep going. You just can't take that one failure and like, nope. But you got to keep going, because all these people that's successful, they failed over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And he said failure is never fatal. It's a down payment you pay for success, and I like that statement.
Yeah. That's something that I think Jeff, what you're talking about is really unique, because a lot of people may not have that type of example in their household.
Yeah.
Of the people of showing you, okay, one, you got to put this money aside, but you also got to make that money work. It should be earning. Sometimes you can save it, but if you hold it,
that money you saving's got to make money.
Right.
You just can't just hold it in, stick it in the mattress or bury it in the backyard and think, hey, I'll put that in there. That 10% I got in the backyard.
Right.
But no, it's got to make money while it's there. Mm-hmm. So you invest in things to make it grow. So when you retire, don't have to work. You don't have to do anything but just retire.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to work.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Is kind of like a lot of people don't see that, especially with like some of the scenarios he was talking about. How and like I said, I'm gonna key it off to one of you guys, talk about a couple of nuggets. But let me say this one. One of the nuggets, it says about Madam CJ Walker, and I've always been really fascinated about her story, how she made something out of nothing, out of having her situation where she made a hair care line in the 1800s. Mm-hmm. This Black woman was an entrepreneur before ahead of her time. I mean, we just now even starting to get tapped into this Black hair care again. This is almost 200 years later.
Yes.
Which is crazy. You know, Black hair care is $1 trillion business.
Yeah.
And
look
this
at Brett and her girlfriend. Yeah, they know.
Yeah, I mean, just look at, so many people out here that are tapping into that market. And Madam C.J. Walker, it talks about the first Black female millionaire and her accomplishments that she has. She's an entrepreneur, philanthropist, all those different things, and that she lived, started off 4 years after slavery. She was orphaned, married, widowed by the age of 20. Mm-hmm. In the early 1900s, she began testing various homemade cures. And by end of 1905, she had developed a revolutionary hair care system aimed specifically at Black women. So she truly was a revolutionary and trailblazing for Black women. And my nugget I was going to bring in here, she talked about some things, and then she said she was raised at a time when everybody had to do something. And I hope I'm quoting her right, but it says, do not sit down and wait for opportunities to come. Get up and make them. That is phenomenal. Phenomenal, because she wasn't waiting on someone to give her a hand. She said, you know what? I'm going to make something out of nothing. And she made it happen. And so I took that nugget just kind of, thinking about me and kind of thinking about some of the tenacity that I see people around me who have been successful. They made stuff happen. You can't sit here and say, oh, I want to do this, and then you don't make it happen. I think that's something that, the nugget I took on page 46, it just came across, because back then you had the Rockefellers, you had the Tiffany's, you had the Vanderbilts. It's Tiffany. You had all these different people out there, and she didn't have someone that looked like her. Right. So still how courageous that had to be able to step out there and to start having what really was quote unquote equivalent to probably Avon at the time. Right. And she had people selling her products for her. How do you think that forward thinking in the 1800s? That's something that you have to only have the drive to make something happen out of nothing. So that was one of my nuggets, guys. Did you guys have any couple of nuggets that you guys want to say? And Shalonda, I see you. Look, good evening, ma'am.
Hey, Shalonda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm gonna have you to introduce yourselves in a little bit. Just want to kind of talk a little bit and see who else is joining on. It's a couple people joining on, so give us a few minutes. We'll do that, but. Any nuggets, guys, you guys want to talk through a little bit that you saw in chapter 1 or anything from the introduction?
Can you guys hear me, Sharon?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Natasha.
So all of the examples in the book, to me, they all had the tenacity that you guys have all spoken of on this call. And even though, like Tyler Perry, Madam C.J. Walker, T.D. Jakes, even if it didn't work initially, they kept trying. So they didn't have that spirit of fear. They were able to, even if they failed, they just kept going. So that's something that kind of stood out to me. The hard work, the tenacity, the determination. And for T.D. Jakes, even though he had the list, I think what stood out to me was when he said, even if he had to stutter, stammer, spit, or choke, I had something to say and I was going to say it. So he believed in himself. And so he started out with, I think, a 10-member church. And then 20 years later, like some of the other examples may have been 5 years later, 2 years later, but 20 years later, he founded the Potter's House, a 27,000 member church that's worth billions. And the other thing on the next page that really, really resonated more than anything to me, we can have inheritance, we can leave things to our children, but I think on page 62, working without a plan is as foolish as going to a sea without a compass. That stood out. But then even more so, that last paragraph, you may leave your millions to your son or daughter, but have you really given your children anything worth possessing? You cannot transfer the discipline, the experience, the grit. You cannot transfer the delight of achieving, the joy felt only in growth, the pride of acquisition. So, I too have like an uncle who we've received some of his inheritance and properties and things like that. And I think it's just in me, but it's not in all of his children. Just to give an example, he didn't want to leave it to his children because he wanted to continue the legacy for the family and leave it to people that were willing to work. I mean, you have to kind of teach your kids to work for it too. Don't just leave them with something, but teach them how to work towards their goals so they can feel that sense of achievement too. Like if they already are born into millions, and if everything, like if we bail them out of everything, that's kind of what I took from this, then where is the drive? Where do they feel the drive and that sense of reward for accomplishing those goals? So that was something kind of to think about. Like I've already started saving my 10% and some, and my daughter. However, I want to teach her to work as well for, you know, for her dreams, so that she doesn't feel like, okay, I know my mom has something to leave to me, so I don't have to work hard. I never have to work hard. How would she feel the result or the reward of that hard work? So for me, those were the main things that I got. You know, if you fail, just keep trying if there's something that you're truly passionate about. And even if we are leaving that legacy and leaving inheritance to our children or whatever the case may be, to, you know, instill that hard work ethic in them, that drive and that determination where they're not giving up, and they know that great feeling when you finally accomplished, I guess, that life where you're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore, and you're actually at that successful point, and you realize that that's a rewarding feeling that we should want our children to feel as well. So
I mean, because I was gonna say, Natasha, I know he talked about something. I was trying to find it when you were talking about it. He was saying how the statistics with people who either got an inheritance or came into some type of money, and I apologize, guys, I have a little bit of cold. And so when they had money, a lot of times they will lose it.
Yes,
they have lost it, and it was a place where I was like, wow, inheritance does not guarantee that you're going to have generational wealth.
No, right. You have to have it in you. I think you have to have it in you, that drive and that ambition. Otherwise, you can lose it. You can be left, you know, $500,000 or $1 million, but if you don't know what to do with it or how to reinvest it, then what good is it? You know? So I agree.
Yeah, just like Jeff was saying with his dad and different things. You have to teach the children. One, and I think this is kind of why this book is so really well written, that if you have teenagers or you have even, you know, maybe tweens, they can easily read this and follow along with it. But you have to teach them, one, by example, but also two, about talking through and understanding why you're doing things. But even like, I was looking at this movie this weekend called House of Gucci. I don't know if you guys seen it, but it's a movie that has Lady Gaga in it. And I think it has my guy, my brain stopped with his name. I know Al Pacino in it, and a couple other people in it. What it is it's the story of Mauricio Gucci and his wife and different things, and how the family kind of split apart. Him and his dad kind of had a riff or whatever, and his uncle brought him back through. But what happened was, it was the uncle and his son, of course, they sold Gucci, whatever, and, you know, a lot of other stuff with it. But the son of his cousin, he was in poverty. He died in poverty.
Wow. So
he had sold all this money, his shares of Gucci, for, you know, I guess to this conglomerate or whoever bought it, and he ended up dying poor. So it goes to show that you can have, and he had an inheritance. He had a Gucci name. And of course, it was some other circumstances how they sold off the company. But my point of saying is that inheritance, a whirlwind of money. They talk about, you know, some type of lottery, because, you know, most times your lottery winners, guys, they lose their money. In 5 years, they're broke.
5 years, right?
They're broke. And so it's kind of like you can give people money, but you also have to change your mindset to where you start to have money in abundance. You have to start thinking about kind of how we were talking about earlier. How do you make your money make money for you? Right. And that's hard. Trust me, I struggle with that. I'm struggling with that now. I'm like, okay, I make a good amount of salary. So what am I doing to try to make sure that I'm not gonna, in 10 years, let's say, my job decided they don't want me here. Then guess what?
Yeah.
I gotta have another income. So that's kind of what this thing is talking about. And I mean, y'all brought that up. I just thought it was so phenomenal because it made sense. It's like there's no guarantee that you're born in money, that you're gonna stay in money.
Right. Exactly.
You got to have the tenacity too.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say, "Oh, well, mom and daddy got me." Well, mom and daddy gone to glory. Guess what? You got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Staying wealth conscious. You hear
me?
me?
Be so conscious. So, in any other nuggets, guys, I'm gonna be quiet. Any other nuggets out there?
No, you fine. I love this. I'm getting all excited. I like on page 72.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the How to Win the War on Poverty. And it listed, he gave actual lists. This one right here, because at one point he was talking about everybody's success, and I kind of dozed off, I ain't gonna lie. He was talking a lot, and then, but I woke up when Chattanooga got heard, and I was like, okay, I'm with it, But I noticed that he was talking about the Browns but he was talking about the poverty. And I like that being optimistic and, seize the moment.
Yeah.
And then I love when you bring God into it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And said, I love it. And all of these lists, I love this. And then he talked about prayer. And then the abundance of your destiny. So I love that. I think this part right here was a key part in here too as well. The list. Because I done wrote all red on mine, y'all. See?
Okay. Yeah.
I done went crazy on it. Well, on that part right there, that was like, okay, you got me.
Yeah. How to win the war on property. That for the Ken Brown story.
Yeah.
Talking about Ken Brown and how he was he was raised by two teen. Well, he was a son of two unwed teenagers.
Right.
Yeah, which is crazy. And he ended up owning McDonald's and restaurants and hotels and stuff like that. And he had made his mindset up early. And I'll be honest with you guys, that brings me to me. I read this and it resonated with me. That's why I'm glad, Tiff, you brought this up. Because when the mindset, and I don't call it a mindset, a wealth mindset. I call it a survival mindset.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm coming from Memphis, Tennessee. Most of you guys know who I am, and raised by my grandparents. I was not raised in affluence. We were comfortable.
Right.
But if you saw my house, the house I grew up now, of course it wouldn't look like it was then. But it's pretty much in the ghetto now, okay? And I tell people that all the time is that, you come from a place where sometimes you don't know how poor you are. Right. Sometimes you're poor, as people call you. You too poor that you can't have the poor. It's poor. You're poor. So what I'm saying here is that sometimes I look back on myself, something clicked in me as a child and said, you know what, I got to be able to take care of me. And so I think that's what Ken Brown decided in his life early on. He saw the circumstances of getting his lights cut off and being evicted 10 times and all those different things. And regardless, he didn't never blame his parents.
No, they didn't make him feel that he was poor though.
He didn't realize at all.
He just knew that they was struggling, but his mom and them didn't make him feel that they was poor.
Yeah.
And he gave an example also in there about the Black Wall Street.
Black Wall Street.
Yeah, that was the blueprint that we should all try to follow.
Yeah,
that whole town had 5 millionaires there. You have 2 banks in there, and they were all black. But one thing he didn't hit on is what happened to it.
Right.
But,
Black Wall Street. Yeah.
What happened to Black Wall Street? But if that would kept going and didn't get destroyed, where we would be now? Because that was doing that powerful moment of blacks couldn't make it then. They had we got so many opportunities now.
Right.
Back then, they didn't have all the opportunities that we have now. They in that city, in that town, had so many millionaires, banks. They own the town was just thriving.
Yeah, on page 67. I mean, I was shocked when they said they had 30 grocery stores, 21 restaurants. You had 21 churches, 2 movie theaters. Black folks couldn't go to the movies that much back then. I mean, 2 newspapers.
Black owned. Everything was black owned.
1 bank, 1 hospital, 1 post office. And I was like, hey, they said 1 library, 1 bus line, and more than 1,200 homes. That right there, we wouldn't have thought that they had anything like that in that time.
And this is around the turn of the century, around 1900.
Yeah,
Renaissance.
And that was unheard of. That they was rich.
They were rich. They had abundance. And the thing is that they did it themselves. None of those people, they came from slavery. Right. They was able to build a whole town. That they said the one guy, I think it's Stratford.
Yeah.
J.B. Stratford, a lawyer son of a runaway slave. Wow.
See? That is
the 65-room Stratford Hotel, and they talked about how people would come to that city. And I remember even looking at this at a documentary talking about Black Wall Street, how they talked about him. And it's just this is success on a whole nother level. Like Jeff was saying, they didn't know they was poor.
No,
right.
They knew that they were struggling and that they wanted better, but they started to put into place things that they needed to put in place to be self-sufficient. Hi, Miss Chris. How are you?
Hey there.
How are you, ma'am?
Good.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm telling you, this one, you can tell that he's starting to go down the way. Okay, it's a decision you have to make individually.
Yeah.
And it's not your mama's decision who left you money or left you in a house. It's not that your parents couldn't save you anything and they didn't give you anything. It is your individual decision to decide today. And I think that's kind of where he was kind of wrapping up at the end. That you have to decide that abundance is your destiny. Rid yourself of poverty mentally. Money goes wherever it is welcome. Decide that you will be a good steward of the money you possess. As a result, more money will be added to you. So those are a couple of things that I kind of saw, guys. I was going to say, Chris, Shalonda, anything you guys want to jump in and add?
Well, I wanted to piggyback on top of Mr. Jeffrey's point that they may not have had that many opportunities and how we have so many open opportunities then. But based on what we were reading in this chapter, it was saying that they had the vision to see there was a niche market that needed something. So they had the vision to see the opportunity and control the opportunity that they saw. So even in our vast abundance of opportunities is whether we see the vision in that opportunity and don't let it pass us by. And then the other point that I thought was great was even with hard work, even with determination, even with the vision, if you are not managing that money appropriately or a good steward of that money, it still makes no difference. So so as much as you have hard work and dedication to earn it, you have to have hard work and dedication to manage it properly.
Correct. Because you can make it and then all of a sudden you lose it because you're not managing it properly.
Yeah.
It's a situation where I think we all brought up that one, you have to be aware, then you have to teach, then you have to have the action behind it, and then be able to manage and maintain. I think that's the 5 pieces.
Your faith. Put feet to your faith.
Yeah, go ahead, Shalom.
No, I was just going to add, when we talk about seizing the opportunities. So, Sharon, and as well as Tom, that my family on my dad's side, they have hundreds and hundreds of acres of land in Georgia. And of course, they lived off that land for many years. And now, they still have people hunting and they're able to pay the taxes. They're able to live comfortably. The family that is still there with the livestock, making sure that the timber has been cut. That's a nice profit that they make. But the trees, of course, take 30 years to grow.
Mhm.
And so the next time that comes around, that's for Brianna and Jaden, to be able to take advantage of that profit. But a few years ago, and it's something that my brother and I have been speaking on. I think I mentioned it to Tom. He mentioned it years ago before solar panels came out. He said, Dad, we have too much land. We have this pond that's sitting out there. We could build a community where we can have houses out there and make money that way. But it's like right in the middle of nowhere. I mean, up until maybe 2 years ago, you couldn't even get down to DeSoto without, you couldn't use your phone. You didn't have cell service. So it was kind of miserable when we had to go for family reunions because nobody could use their phones.
Y'all were living off the grid for real.
Right, exactly, girl. It was something else. Right. But now they have cell service. So just recently I went back to visit. I can't remember, it was my uncle's funeral. And there on the way to our land, there is, of course, acres and acres of just the people were using that land for, you saw cotton, you saw all kinds of different fields of different things, right? Mm-hmm. Now, those same people, when my brother mentioned about solar panels, that same land, when we're going down the street now, all you see is miles and miles of solar panels.
Wow.
So these people, and Daddy said is Mr. Thomas, and the white family, Mr. Thomas, their land, they took advantage of the opportunity. This is what we were talking about, opportunities. They took advantage of using their land. They're making more money now with solar panels than they did before, having cows, having timber on the land. So now we're at the point, my brother is like, I told you all, well, he told me and my dad, we need to think about doing this. And so we're at the point now, we're trying to sit down with the siblings that are left. My brother and my dad and his 3 brothers are left out of 10 kids. And we have probably a total of 30 nieces and nephews that we need to sit down, but we have to figure out a way to seize this opportunity. We have this land. We see that these solar panels are not going anywhere. It's on the rise. It's continually growing. And so it's nice the fact that we're able to rent out the land to people to go hunt, go fish, but it's not enough. It's nothing for them, but not enough for this, the younger generation. We need to have that mindset, like you said, to think above and beyond and then take advantage of the opportunities. So this book is helping me to kind of grasp my next steps. And then, because I want to be able to sit down with these nieces and nephews, because we have attorneys, we have well-educated people who can help us, figure out our next step. But so today is my first day listening in, but I'm not feeling that well, but I was glad to hear about the different nuggets that you all are talking about. And it kind of gives me the unction to want to make sure to go to that next step, to talk to my brother, talk to my dad, because right now my dad and my Uncle Cliff are like the spearheaders right now, what to do with the land next. And I need to get things rolling, because we don't want to have an issue where all of them are gone and then everybody, we don't have a game plan.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what, Shalonda, too, I was looking at some, I like HGTV, and that's my show, y'all. And I was noticing when you said off the grid, there are so many people that want to live off the grid.
Right.
And that's a major portion. I didn't realize they were building like 2-bedroom cabins, retreats with saunas and stuff. And it was just a getaway from the world.
Exactly.
And there was no internet, no phones, just getting away. I hope they was packing, but okay. But I was sitting up there and I was thinking, gosh, if I had some land, we could probably build something really nice on that land and just have a retreat. And they were showing like these people had put all of that money into that into this little retreat, and they are millionaires now. It's booked for the year, all the way out to
4 ideas. Remember, we
Right.
said 4 ideas a year, and so these are that. I think Chris, you talked about this last week. You had homework that you were starting to figure out, what is my action plan? And I think LT and Peter were saying the same thing. And so this is good that you guys are bringing this up. You're seeing the action, the works part of what's happening.
right.
So what we need to start thinking about is in our homework is thinking about, okay, Shaw, you've talked about how you're going to go back to your family and talk about things there, and Tiff and Jeff, talk about his dad, how he's been doing that. He's been an example, to his family, and how we have to go back. Not only do we have to know, but we have to teach. And I think that's part of some of this as well. So, being able to first identify, okay, this is truly a mindset. This is not just a book.
Right. Yes.
And being able to read off the pages, Dr. Kimbrough is giving us the tools to say, just like you were saying, those nuggets. Let me go back to what you were saying. What page was that? What page? Okay, here it is. Page 72, Tiff, that you were talking about. It says, be an optimist.
Yeah,
Seize the moment.
Yes.
It says, we've been blessed by the Almighty God who has a gentle heart. Manhood can never be given, only earned. Your greatest strength is the power of your example.
Mm-hmm.
Then it says prayer. Everybody knows about prayer. We're not even talking about that. The language of the heart is the center of being a center of a humble life, and fear not. Having is a habit we worship God of poverty and scarcity long enough. I read that and I was like, he is so right.
Yes.
What happened is that our mindset fails is that we decide early on, if we're going to stay poor, we're going to have a poor mentality, we're going to live in the projects, be ghetto, whatever we want that to associate that with.
Mm-hmm.
Trust that I don't like saying that, but it's the truth. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to say enough is enough. I am not going to have those chains wrapped around me any longer. Mm-hmm. Then it says abundance is your destiny. Rid yourself of the poverty mentality. Money goes wherever it is welcomed.
That's right.
Say that again.
Wherever it's welcome.
And I know this is my husband over there, Mr. Tom Lynch. He always says this. He said, decide that you will be a good steward of your money. Mm-hmm. And as a result, your more money will be added to you. So what I'm saying is that if you think that you're going to have abundance, if you think you're going to be able to be well off, and some people, you don't want to just be well off. You don't necessarily want to have to be wealthy. I would love to be wealthy. I know that comes with other issues and problems. Tom and I go back and forth with that. But what I'm saying is that you have to have the what do you call it, Tom? You have to speak as it already exists.
Right. You got to put it in the atmosphere, which is the Bible says to call those things are not as though they were.
Right.
So speak it over yourself. Speak it over your girl, your boy. Speak it over your husband. Speak it over your wife. And and another thing I hear. Well, I'll say over here my wife talking to Miss Shalana sometimes, and I hear things like, "Girl, I'm broke. Girl, I can't pay attention."
No, he ain't telling his.
What you don't understand is that the atmosphere has ears, and the atmosphere itself aspires to make whatever happens, whatever you put out there, because the atmosphere hears it. Just like you could say, I get up every day and I put my feet on the ground every day before I do anything else. When I put my feet down, I look up and I say, God, thank you for a perfect and prosperous day. I call today anointed. I call today appointed. I call today prosperous.
That's right.
The atmosphere hears that. And your day is going to more likely go that way. Now, on the other hand, if you get up and say, man, my bank account's on zero and boss call, he tripping.
Yeah.
And then you start your day in the rut. And
your day
atmosphere hears that.
You start your day.
And your day will turn out that way before it's over. So you're right, Sharon. I do speak that.
Yes.
I speak that over us all the time, and I tell you all the time, baby, don't say you broke. Just say Just say you short.
Don't say you don't say it all the time. You say it when I say it. I don't say it all the time.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here, because none of us are perfect. We're learning together.
Yes.
To change the mindset of poverty.
Right.
Because sometimes we don't realize that the tongue is powerful. What you speak is what you think. And so when you say it, you don't think much of it. But like he was saying, is that you have to have it innate in you. And after a while, you start to do it. Then your children start to see you do it. You start to speak it. And so you have to change these little small things here and there to change your mindset to a wealth mindset, quote unquote, as he said. So,
I liked on page 75 when you say change that mindset. I love this part on the first row. It says, regardless of the roadblock, it says you can't focus on what you're going through, only what you're going to do.
There you go.
Right. That's a good one. That's a good one.
That right there. Look, y'all. This book gonna be a Bible in a minute.
That's a good one. I just had to do that even with my husband, because he just took a job at Amazon, and and he was like, he told me, he said, I guess I might just have to take this one because ain't nothing else coming through. I said, no, that's not what you're supposed to say. You need to say, I'm going to do this until the next thing does come.
Yes.
I had to tell him,
come on, girl, preach.
That's it. Preach.
Change that. Okay, this is what you have to do for now. This is just a temporary situation. Until the next one comes through. So, I had to tell him that the other night. So,
it's like the example he gave in the book with the guy who runs McDonald's now. He was working as a waiter. Then later on, he was like, "But this one I'm gonna keep doing." Then he got the opportunity to run one McDonald's. Then he did that well. Everything is a stepping stone to get to where you need to be.
Right.
But sometimes what happens is that we get off course because we either fail or it's not coming fast enough.
Right.
Yeah. It's coming fast enough, but it's not fast enough for us.
Right.
Because he always got a plan for you. So you just keep moving and keep going. You don't stop. That's the whole thing. So far from chapter 1 to chapter 2, and even in the induction, it's telling you to don't stop.
Yeah.
Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Keep the faith. Keep moving. Keep trucking. Don't let that failure defeat you. And I think
don't let that one door close stop you. Just keep moving. If that door closed, open another one.
Right. On page 5, along with what they're saying. You go down to the bottom where it's on 75, where it says, decide now that you will not be poor. The first paragraph says it says the conviction that we are poor and must remain so is futile. But the next part I like the best is, as long as we envision despair, we will never arrive at the gates of the light. So envisioning despair means that, like you said earlier, I think somebody said earlier, what if what I'm doing does fail? What if what you're doing works?
Right.
What if this job don't last? But what if this job does last? I remember Sharon starting to work for the company she works for now. How many times you work for? Was it 3? They let you guys go 3 times?
I think I was let go 3 times.
Like 3 times, because it was just a temporary thing. And if she had just said, "Well, I'm just giving up, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to envision despair and just leave it right there." If she would, had she done that, she would never arrive at the gates of the light. Now, whatever that means for her, the gates of the light. I mean, she lives pretty good, but she hung in there and made sure that what she had envisioned, she wanted. Conviction that you're going to be poor, and it's going to be. She did not remain futile, because she made up her mind what she was going to do. It's all about mindset.
Right. It is the mindset. It is. I'm learning that we need to reteach our kids a different way. Yeah. Because we've been taught. Right. We how you've been taught to save and penny pinch and save and save. But we never was taught to invest and spend and how to spend. We wasn't taught the proper way of doing that.
And how to save.
Yeah.
Nobody ever taught me. Nobody ever taught me how to save. This is something that Sharon and I have been. We've been on this bandwagon for a couple of years now. But I mean, I'm 56 years old. I should have been knowing more about saving 40 years ago. See.
But it's never too late to learn. That's the good thing about it. The thing is now sometimes your journey, just like Ken Brown was saying, is that you're learning kind of through your experience. So now through these experiences, you're starting to put things in place so that your next generation of your children or their children will now understand how to think this way, so they don't have to go through the life challenges or some of the stumbling blocks that we've gone through.
Right.
And I think this is why this book is really resonating with all of us, because he's talking about, matter of fact, let me bring this nugget up. We have about 2 more minutes or so, guys. This time flew by. Wow. So let me say these 2 nuggets, and then we can talk about maybe next week's homework and next week's stuff. So this one was talking about the individual who is trapped by indecision, ever juggling 2 opinions, forever debating which course to pursue, cannot control him or herself to let alone his or her financial future. What it's saying is that you got to make a darn decision.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't be teetering back and forth and not sure what to do, because what happens, it makes you indecisive. You never make a decision. And guess what? Those 4 ideas you had, guess what? Somebody else did it and made money off of it.
Yeah.
And you have to make a decision. And sometimes you're going to be wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to start over. Just like Jeff was saying earlier, it's okay that is not going exactly the way you want. If it fails, try something else. But we have to continue to keep trying. The another one they talked about, and I read this right before we got on, it says on page 76, it says, no need not to require a lifetime in order to make the leap. I guess it's talking about from poverty or for before you become a millionaire, or just wealth mindset. That's what it's saying. Throughout my life, my focus groups, millionaires who transition from paycheck to paycheck, because I'm gonna tell you right now, that is where I am.
That's where most of us are.
Okay. Paycheck to paycheck. It says here, to life of affluence, replied that the process took in less than 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's phenomenal in itself. It's saying that if we start doing some things, tweaking things now, we do not have to always be dependent on a paycheck. That means that we have to start thinking now, and it only takes 5 years or less. That is great. When I read that, I was like, you know what? This is why we needed to read this book.
Yeah.
Where it is, there it is. We needed to read this book because, like you said, some of us kind of know some keys to investments and success and different things like that. But I think it's also just changing our mindsets to realize that we don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. That may be multiple streams of income. That may be doing something, on the side, side hustle. It may be owning property. It may own, a cleaning business. It may be, owning your own food services, all those different things. But you have to figure those things out. And so with that being said, do we have anything everybody wants to talk about before we conclude today? We'll talk about a little bit about next week's on here. This has been a great session. Anybody want to discuss anything? If not, I'm going to allow the Holloways to introduce themselves, and then I'll have Miss Shalonda Barr to introduce herself to the group.
Okay, I'm Tiffany Holloway.
I'm Jeff Holloway.
And we're the Holloways.
I think that what the question we was asking everybody last week was, what were you wanting guys to kind of get from this particular book club? What were you wanting to get out of it?
Well, basically, just starting from the introduction for me and up to the 2nd chapter, to get to know how all the rest of them started.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I got to get over my fear of failing. I have put things out Sometimes I fail, sometimes I succeed. But I got to really, for me, myself, because I have ideas to put out there to make things to move forward. Just for prime example, the artwork I got made that you have behind your head now. Now I was getting a kick out of because you have it up.
Yes, I do. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So it was a deal for me to do it at my job. I've been on my job for 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said, because it was at a time that we thought that company was not going to make it, that I thought, maybe I need to leave to go pursue something else. But I didn't. I stayed with the company, and we still moving.
Mm-hmm.
Other companies that we are sister with has closed.
Mm.
We're the only company in Chattanooga that's still functioning. The guy who owns us, he has 7 companies. He has closed 13 of them.
Wow.
7.
Wow.
And the company that I'm with now, he's keeping. So I was like, if I would have jumped ship at the time that I thought I should, I wouldn't have been in the position I am now to do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm juggling the possibility to do a small business so I can just make designs like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, so when the book came along, I'm like, well, maybe I can start doing
There you go. There you go.
At 49. I was like, yeah, cool. We can do that. So I got a kick that you got it on the wall back there.
Yeah.
And my dad had his up. Yeah, my dad got his up.
Your brothers.
That goes to show that you have a talent, and that talent needs to be spread across. I mean, he made this. He's a welder, guys. That's iron. So he made that. So I mean, that's why I was saying I'm glad that this book has come along, and it's kind of what's happening. Even what Chris was saying last week is tapped into people.
Right, right.
That okay, what can I do now? They call it recession. They're not saying quote unquote it is a recession. And I think Shalonda dropped off, Tom, if I'm thinking right. I don't see her.
She did.
Well, we'll have her introduce herself next week. But I'm gonna wrap this up real quick because I want to definitely be respectful of everybody's time. But I was gonna say, knowing that people are talking about recessions and different things like that, this is why this is really good for us to kind of go through this book and think about in our own lives. And that's why I want everybody to kind of realize that none of us are perfect, that everybody has something that we have to work on, and being honest and transparent. And if you want to share with the group, I think that's good, because like I was saying last week, having other people to have accountability really does help you to kind of start setting your goals up. So I know Chris talked about her action plan and different things like that. So I will say homework for you guys is just to go back and let's read chapter 2. This was going to talk about the haves and have-nots, the difference that makes the difference. So we'll talk about that. Let's talk through that, get some good nuggets there. And then also think about maybe some of the things, some of your 4 ideas that you may have thought through this year, and maybe share one of those particular things with us next week on something that it popped in your head, and maybe it was something that later on you saw on TV. Oh, I thought about that. I know I talked about that thing, and I forgot, guys. I forgot to bring that thing. I'll find it next week. But that was one of the things I thought about myself. So just want to homework. Think about chapter 2. Let's highlight some nuggets there. Also, some of the things that your ideas that you've thought through that maybe at the time you were too busy or whatever, or it's something that you haven't seen yet and you may not want to share, but maybe some things that you can at least kind of start writing out for your own self that you can start working towards. And maybe by the end of the book, it's something that we can discuss a little bit later. So with that being said, book club members, it has been an awesome another hour working with you guys. I appreciate it so much. I know we'll join at the same time at 7:00 next week on the 19th. If you guys know anyone else that you think this particular group will benefit, go ahead and send me an email. I'll be more than happy to add them on. Once again, it's been great, guys. I thank you so much for your time, and I will see you guys next week, okay?
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
All right, guys. See you guys later. Thanks so much. Talk to you guys later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
You said bye.
Like click.
How do you get the